So I used to play a lot of Guild Wars 2. I've played quite a fair bit of Guild Wars 2 actually. If I type in /age, and I probably will later on in this video, I'll find out that I've played an absurd amount of Guild Wars 2. But I've always really wanted it to have controller support. It's one of the things that I loved most about Final Fantasy XIV. And when I saw the Steam controller, I was like, well, this is going to be great. Because I live in Australia, it took us ages to get the Steam controller, and now that it's here, it costs an absurd amount of money. Controllers generally do, actually. But Steam recently implemented support for non-Steam controller gamepads. So if you have a PS4 controller, or an Xbox One controller, or a 360 controller, or a PS3 controller with like some really dodgy drivers, you can get it working with Steam controller UI pretty much. So you can use it to control PC games in a way that is far more elegant than I originally thought. So like using older programs like Xpadder and Joy to Key, typically they felt like complete shit. This doesn't. This feels really, really good. I'll show you what I mean. So this is Steam Big Picture mode, obviously. I've got Guild Wars 2 is the most recent game because I'm a fucking nerd like that. But if I go into the controller configs, you can see that it's obviously got support for the Xbox One controller here. You can obviously see here, just in front of my fantastic legs, that it's exactly what I'm rolling with right now. I think at first glance, the bindings might come across as a little bit chaotic. That's because they are. It's so friggin' backwards. You'll also notice up at the top there, it's a Guild Wars 2 Elementalist only. I've named the configuration file, I guess. That's because I exclusively play an Elementalist in Guild Wars 2. Whether I'm playing on my US account or my European account, I'm always playing as an Elementalist, usually with the same style of play as well. Like I usually play with the staff. So for other classes in Guild Wars 2, you'll have to tweak this sort of configuration if you're wanting to use an Xbox One controller or a PS4 controller. Funnily enough though, if you're using a Steam controller, there are plenty of other community templates out there. So if you show Steam controller configs, you've got all of these here. But if you hide other controller types and you just show what is implemented for an Xbox 360 or an Xbox One controller, I think they're named as X input devices on Steam. There's nothing here. And the only one that's personal is, my thing right here. So I guess I'll very quickly run down what the deal is. Left stick is to move, and left stick click is to dodge. That's pretty self-explanatory. The right stick is used to control the mouse, and you can basically play it like a third-person shooter if you're using the Guild Wars 2 action camera. And I'll show you what that means if you don't know what it is. But basically, I think a year or so ago, ArenaNet implemented a keyboard mouse configuration where you didn't have to right-click to move the camera or left-click to move the camera. You can just move your mouse and it'll move the camera. And so it has like a little reticle in the middle of the screen, and that's pretty much how you aim. So it's closer to something like Terra, I guess. To swap back and forward between the camera modes, I've got that on back. Camera mode doesn't have a button bound by default in Guild Wars 2, so I just bound it to something I'm not using, like U. If you are using U, just bind it to something else. I figure a keyboard has enough buttons for you to find something that you're not using. All of my offensive abilities are mapped to the face button. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, you can see there. But you can mode shift with the right bumper to 7, 8, 9, and 5. Now the reason why it's those buttons as opposed to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, I've got the heal ability and the elite ability on the D-pad. So here we've got up and down on the D-pad is scroll up and down, and then left and right is heal and elite. The triggers are just the mouse buttons pretty much, so that's easy to keep up with. But if you have a look at what the mode shifting is that I've got on the right stick and the D-pad, that gets a little bit hectic. Because I'm an Elementalist, my F1 to F4 abilities I'm using them constantly, so I need quick access to those. And so if I hold down left bumper and I use the right stick, you can see here that I will, it'll come up with a radial menu, and I'll be able to swap between the 4 elements. And I just hold it down, stick in the direction that I need it to be, and it'll immediately swap. I don't need it to be held, I don't need like the direction held down when I release it. I found that actually moves the camera a little bit more than I'd like. And on the D-pad, I have interact and map bound to those. You can bind more if you want, but I couldn't be bothered, to be honest. That's just sort of the I would say short and sweet version, but it kind of dragged on a little bit longer than I thought it would. I guess I'll jump into the game now and show you what I mean. So, first of all, sorry about any background noise that you're almost definitely going to hear. that's just the reality of my life right now. But so I've just booted into Guild Wars 2, as you can see here, and I'm moving the mouse around with the right stick, and it's working really well actually. It feels a hell of a lot better than using something like Joy-to-Key or X-Padder. If you use those and you ever tried binding mouse to a joystick, it felt like total shit. Using the default mode in the Steam controller or the Steam gamepad, whatever, the gamepad configuration, using those default settings actually results in mouse movement that you can move through really fine UI and HUD elements very quickly. Well, with not too much difficulty, but then you can do everything else very quickly, and that's kind of what I need. So using back, I will immediately swap into the action camera. You can see that in the middle of the screen there is that little dot there, that little reticule, and I'm able to pretty easily move my way around the world. I love playing this game, it's so friggin' pretty. It came out like 5 years ago, but it still looks so good. So if I want to interact with UI elements, like I want to go into the, I guess my inventory or whatever else, I hit back, I have control of the cursor again, and I can go up to the top here and interact with these UI elements. If you wanted to, you could bind whatever you've got them bound to on your keyboard to a controller input. I couldn't be bothered, to be honest. I don't use them with enough frequency that I need them, because anything that's... Basically, if you're playing something like World vs. World or PvP, okay, probably don't use PvP with the controller, but if you're playing World vs. World, those can, there are moments that can get pretty intense. And if you're tripping over, like, inventory or the Black Lion trading house or whatever in the middle of battle, like, you don't want to do that. So pretty much, if I want to go into my inventory, there it is. I can scroll up and down with the D-pad. If I want to change my view in the world, up and down on the D-pad, it's pretty simple. And then if I want to, after going through my inventory, go back to playing, you hit back and immediately you're back to where you need to be. The main thing that I keep getting tripped up on is closing UI elements using B. So if you're using like a console or whatever, usually B gets you out of a menu. B uses my second ability, no, my fourth ability here. So you hit start. Start is bound to escape. That's the problem. So if I'm in my inventory, for example, and I want to back out, I hit B. Oh no, I've just sprinted. That's not useful. So just, that's the main thing that I keep tripping over. Yeah, jump is bound to right stick click. I guess jump isn't that important, which is why I didn't put it to something that's a little bit easier. It's more or less for just sort of getting to higher ground, more or less, or getting over little bumps in the terrain. I kind of approach this with the mindset of what's going to be the least annoying thing to have to deal with in World vs. World, because that's like the worst case scenario, more or less. So changing through elements is probably one of the more complex things. Steam controller configuration, the system that it uses, you can use radial menus. So here I'm holding down LB, as you can see, and I can, with the right stick, I want to switch to water, so I just hit right, and it'll immediately go to water. If you want to go to Earth, left, go to Earth. It can be a little bit finicky sometimes, so you might find yourself having to do it a few more times than you like. Air I found particularly dodgy, and that might just be because the dead zones on my controller might be off, or I just haven't messed with the dead zones much in the configuration. But for the most part, it's pretty responsive. Air is the only one that I found difficulty switching to, which I usually just use to run away from combat anyway. Interacting with stuff, so if I come up against an NPC, where is an NPC gonna be? So I want to talk with this NPC, I will hold down right bumper and hit up on the D-pad. I could have just bound it on the right D-pad as a button pad, but I found having like an on-screen representation actually, I really enjoy that. Like it's a novel idea right now, so maybe in a few weeks time I might get rid of it and just turn it into a button pad because I'm familiar with it. But having that UI element pop up on screen, I actually find really useful, I guess. If I want to go to the map, because the map is the only UI element that's kind of a pain in the ass. The ones up the top left are usually pretty painless to get to, but the one down in the bottom right, like these icons are even smaller. Not by much, but like by enough. So I bound map to right bumper D-pad down, and so then I can drag along the map, I can scroll in and scroll out, and it's smooth, it's good, it's responsive, and I'm enjoying it. How this would work for other classes, I'm not entirely sure. I've played only a little bit of Engineer, a bit of Ranger. you'd probably want to bind Tild to something, because Tild is the weapon swap. I obviously don't have that as an elementalist, so I'm just using those elements here, like I said earlier. In terms of on the ground targeting as well, I can imagine that you might think, that's going to be pretty painful, right? Not really. So if I hit 2, it works really well with the action camera, so I'm able to just move the camera and position it exactly where I need it to be. And I can use right click, or I can hit the button again to bind it. So that's pretty much the gist of what I've got going on with the Steam, with the Xbox One Steam controller configuration for Guild Wars 2. It feels really good. I'm really enjoying it. I would say it feels about as good as Final Fantasy XIV's controller implementation was, and 14 felt so good. I really fucking love 14, man. So that's pretty much it. Right now, you can only configure Xbox or PlayStation controllers as part of the Steam beta program. Odds are that'll change in a few weeks' time, but if you're watching this as it's coming out, odds are you'll probably want to go into the settings thing here, go into controller settings, and here you'll find PS4 configuration support, Xbox configuration support, and generic gamepad configuration support. Anyway, that's pretty much it for this video. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions or anything you want to say, feel free to in the comments of this video. If you want to... I don't even know why you'd want to talk to me on Twitter about this. Whatever. Follow me on Twitter. I'm @cringeworthy. And yeah, that's about it. Thanks for watching. Bye.